Hey guys, huge thanks to Satchel of Steel Panther for coming on and doing an awesome interview with me. Steel Panther is going to be doing a live stream concert on their website, steelpantherrocks.com. You can go check that out. It'll be happening at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, and whatever the hell that is for you internationally. Tickets are $15 a piece. It'll be a hell of a good time. I'm going to drop in there myself. All right, let's just hop right into the interview. I was going to ask how coronavirus has actually been affecting y'all.
Everything that we had booked for the next few months. Like we had a lot of festivals in Europe and a lot of United States gigs. And we were supposed to go to Australia like about 2 weeks ago. Everything got canceled or postponed. So that's been bad. But being a musician is especially being a touring musician, you get used to going out and touring, and then you get used to long jaunts at home, like 6 weeks at home. So it's not weird to be at home, which, I'm used to doing that, but it's weird to be at home for as long as we have been.
For sure.
Getting any money. But for me, it's actually been really good because I've been actually just, there's nothing else to do except be creative. So I've been writing a lot of songs.
Dude, hell yeah. That is awesome. I haven't been as creative as I should have been during the lockdown. I've actually took it as a time to take a break just because I've been moving so quickly all the time. But actually for us, we stopped doing rehearsals because of the social distancing thing. Did you guys actually stop meeting up as a group too?
I've seen those. The only thing I've seen of those guys is occasionally we'll do FaceTime or a Zoom meeting.
It's so sad.
It sucks. I miss playing with those guys, and I'm really looking forward to doing this show that we have coming up because it sucks not being able to play. I really feel
absolutely.
Like one of those. We used to. I mean, before we started touring, we were a residency band. Before we ever did records, we did residencies, and we played at least 3 or 4 times a week. And
where was your residency at, if you don't mind me asking?
We started, the first residency we ever did was in Vegas in the 90s.
Yeah, and that moneymaker.
Yeah, I mean, but that was like, it didn't really go off. So we were all in different bands. Then we started doing, I was able to convince the dude who ran the Viper Room to put us in there on a Monday night. And we started playing Monday nights at like midnight. And
wow.
There was like 10 people there the first time we played. And the following week there was 200. And then the week after that it was sold out every week. And then it was like sold out every week for 4 years. And then we moved to the Roxy and then the House of Blues. And basically did residencies in LA every week on a Monday night for 13 years straight. But that was, the weird thing about doing residencies is you get used to playing all the time. You never rehearse because you're doing so many gigs. It's like, there's no reason to rehearse.
Exactly. Yeah. Like unless maybe there's like new material or something. And even then.
Yeah, exactly. We rehearsed when we started doing records. We were like, oh, let's go to rehearse. Rehearse. But now we go out and tour, and we used to do residencies and we play to the same 1,000 people every week because they just kept coming back, and we try to make the show different every week. And now we go.
That is tough. That is really tough.
Well, it was tough, but it was great because it was that pressure of you need to be different than last week, and you need to be. There was a lot of improv involved, so we would that's how we became an entertaining band. It was like, let's do something different because otherwise we won't be able to pay our rent.
I mean, speaking as someone who has seen you live, it's a hell of a live show. It's really good. Like I was thoroughly impressed, man. That was awesome.
I appreciate it. It's definitely different once we started touring because now we can go out and it's easy to get lazy and go, we did this last night. Let's just do the same show. And you end up doing the same show a lot. And then you take a break for a month, you don't see each other, and then you got to relearn how to play the songs. And
yeah, we're going through that right now. We in Nashville, they're just starting to open some stuff back up, so we're able to rehearse again, which I'm super happy about. But man, we are looser than a 50-cent hooker right now, man. It's pretty bad.
Do you do a lot of gigs in Nashville, like just every night?
No. Our band's relatively new. I would say we really just formed like a year ago, and we've only done a handful of a handful of shows in Nashville. We're a progressive metal band, so
But
not one of those things that you really want to do every night, you know.
actually, that's one of the things about the style of music that you choose to play. It can be, you know, I mean, if you want to be in like a soft, you know, not a low volume country band, you could play, you know, 4 sets a night for 7 nights a week.
And they're guys who make a great living doing that here.
If you're in a metal band, though, you gotta limit your amount of gigs, or you'll go deaf after 3 months.
Yeah. Well, that and just trying to get people out, you know, it's a lot more difficult. You know, people aren't dancing and drinking and having a blast all the time, unless maybe you're a hardcore band.
I always dance with progressive metal bands.
Fucking Dance of Eternity by Dream Theater's on, and you're out in the crowd. It's like
On the dance floor every time.
hell yeah, man. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, you had mentioned the show that you guys are gonna do. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're doing a live show for you know, for our fans, because so many of our shows got canceled. We had a lot of Australian gig. We haven't been to Australia in 2 years, so we had a lot of shows down there get canceled or postponed, and just all the shows that we normally do. So we figured, let's just do a show. And plus, you know, we're like a lot of bands, our income stream just went to zero. Well, let's figure out how we can do a show online. And, you know, so many people don't like to pay for things online because it's basically the culture that Google created, right? They went, hey, we'll just give everybody everything for free
in exchange for their information and all that shit.
We'll buy all our data, and then we'll send advertisers. You know, that's why pop-up windows happen all the time. Hold on, I gotta close this window real quick. Not silly deal with that shit. But the problem for musicians is, like, musicians went, oh well, shit, we'll just give our music away to Spotify and to Pandora, and nobody makes any money on their music anymore. And people are also trained to get everything online for free, so nobody wants to pay for anything online. And now everybody's being forced into this. If you do like to go see bands, you can't. So if you want to see a band online, you almost can't expect to see it for free because it costs money to do a show. To
do a legit good one. Like, you guys, like, the way I saw it described, this is going to be like a live performance, but with multiple cameras, and you guys are actually going to do audience interaction.
Yeah, we're gonna put on we're gonna have, you know, lights, we're gonna have smoke and pyro, and we're gonna release wild tigers into the audience. And
fuck yeah, absolutely.
It's gonna be great. And of course, we're gonna have 4 or 5 camera guys.
Yeah.
And we have to have, you know, anytime you do a show, a lot of people don't realize you have to have like monitor guys, sound guys to mix it, and there's a lot of people involved, and, you know, everybody's got to make money, and of course we would like to make money too, because that's how we pay our bills and all that.
Hopefully, yeah.
We just figured, well, what's a good price? We'll charge $15. You know, we're doing it on June 7th, and I figure, like, you know, a lot of places, you know, $15 to see any show is, I don't know if you can get a ticket to see a show for $15 at this point, but
like a good local gig or like a very small touring artist, that's about it. That's in Nashville. So
yeah, right. That's like any that's almost like the you know, just the entry fee to any bar at this point. Like, you know, go out to any bar in LA and they're going to charge you $20 just at the door.
Yeah, that's one thing I don't miss about those types of bars. I don't miss cover charges at all. I don't miss that shit whatsoever.
Yeah, it's dumb, right? But you know, it's we figured, you know, our fans, the people that have seen us, they know that we put on a good show, and they want to see us do our thing, and we're always engaging, and we're gonna have TVs so we can actually see comments and talk to the crowd in between the
Yes. So the thing that pissed me off most about coronavirus, other than just all the bullshit that's happening right now, everyone and their dog is fucking live streaming concerts now. And like, I had been talking about doing this for a couple of years, and we were actually on plan to do basically what you guys were doing, but on a much smaller budget. And now it's like, I'm not an innovator anymore. Like, I'm just another fucking guy. It sucks so bad.
Well, you know, I feel like, you know, it's inevitable. Like everybody's stuck inside and everybody's got to do something. So you're going to be, you know, I mean, anybody who's in a band has to figure out like how many fans do we have, and how can we get them to, how can we engage them? And that's basically what we're doing. I mean, if we were the Eagles, I'm sure we'd make a lot more money at it. But if we were the Eagles, we probably wouldn't need to do it in the first place.
Yeah, right.
I would just be like, fuck everybody. I'm going to stay home and
you just do another re-release of a special edition of your greatest hits and buy another mansion, you know?
Exactly. So all of us bands that are not the Eagles are just trying to figure out how to engage our fans and how to sell some T-shirts, and you got to get your fans to want to support you. And I think in order to do that, you just have to, you know, engage them and put music out that they want to hear, and keep on rocking, basically. Just keep on doing it.
That's 1,000% it, man. I mean, you basically, that's the thing where, you know, you get a lot of these like, oh, get your music heard, like build your fan base, blah, blah, blah. The real honest ones tell you up front, if the music's not there, this ain't going to do shit. You know, you have to have solid product, and you got to be willing to work and just entertain bring value to your audience, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, that's you know, it's funny. I find myself getting older by the day, and I find kids that are like 25 and they come asking me for advice, like, hey, you know, and I'm thinking to myself, why are you asking me advice? I'm 25 too. Oh, wait, I'm not 25. And then I realized, holy shit, I'm so much older than these guys that are 25. It's like, and I try to tell them like there really is no blueprint to success in music except do what you really dig and try to find something that resonates with people somehow. Like, and that can be like, sometimes you don't know even how it's going to happen. Like our band started as a cover band, but we engaged our audience so well that people didn't give a shit what we were. I mean, honestly, we could go up there and play Paranoid over and over, and people wouldn't care. They were just so engaged with us, and they loved what we did. And you know, us doing original music just became a natural extension of that. But really, it came down to the chemistry of the guys in the band. And sometimes that's, you know, I feel like every band that's good has a chemistry, whatever it is, and it's something that you cannot force. Like, it's something that's either there or it isn't. And when you find it, you got to know, oh shit, this is cool. Like, let's not break this band up. Because how many bands do you know that break up, right? Like almost all of them.
Almost all the time. Like I feel blessed to be with the group of guys that I have, and we're not a complete lineup yet. We're still missing two pieces, but like we're all really chill. We all like have a very brotherly bond now after a year of doing this, and there is that chemistry, you know. And we also have the attitude of serving the song, admitting where you're fucking up, and trying to actually correct it, you know. Like, I see a lot of recipe for success here as long as the composition is there, which I think it is. Hopefully, we'll see.
Yeah, that's a tough thing too. Like writing records and writing songs. That's really such a difficult thing to do. And it's, you know, of course, at the end of the day, with that kind of shit, it's subjective. So it's music. It's not like a sport, you know. Like,
yeah,
there's no sport. The only people keeping score are, you know, the critics on the comments section of YouTube and you.
Right, and fucking Billboard, apparently, even though, like, I don't know, did you see their top 10 or top 20 songs of the decade, rock songs of the decade?
No, I can't look at that shit. It drives me nuts.
Dude, it was like, there might have been one actual rock song on there. Rest of it was pretty trite.
That's the fucked up thing about, like, you know, critics and I always think about Frank Zappa when I think about critics. He had a song. He wrote a song for the critics that said something about taking a ride on the cosmic utensil, and and that was his song for the critics, like basically just go sit and spin, right? Because he hated the critics because they are. I mean, he got panned all the time, but really, if you write songs and you're in, like you have to do it for you and the people that appreciate what you do, because all the critics are there for is to make you feel like shit about yourself, but like you can't listen to any of that because it's really only what you think about your own songs. Like, is this cool? Does it make me feel good?
And I mean, your audience is all the evidence that you need, at the end of the day.
Yeah. And if you got fans, some shows you do, there's going to be, thousands of people, and sometimes there's going to be dozens, but you got to remember that even if there's just 10 people at your show, they came there to see you, and you got to, rock as hard as you possibly can. And that's always been our thing as a band. Like it's always about our live performance and how do we go out there and put on the best show that we possibly can. And no matter what, like we never know who's going to show up. Like we could do this live thing on June 7th and have 6 people pay for tickets, but we're going to rock just as hard.
Fuck yeah.
Like 1 million people, so it doesn't matter to us. So
I mean, shit, at that point they got VIP,
The less people show up, the more questions we can talk, the more we can talk to them. Otherwise, you get that feed, the comments feed, and it just, if there's 100 people typing at the same time, it just goes by so fast you can't fucking see it.
So we're going to play a little game called Smash or Pass. Are you familiar with Smash or Pass?
I have an idea about what it is, yeah.
Okay.
Is it just guitar players?
For this one, it's going to be guitar players. Typically, it's like, would you fuck this girl or this lady, yes or no? But we're not going to bring actual... What's that?
Well, then that's a yes for almost everybody if I have enough alcohol.
Word. But okay, this isn't going to be literally having sex with, but basically like, do you dig what they do? So smash or pass. All right, you ready?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so first off, my boy John Petrucci, smash or pass?
Oh, he's awesome. I'll say smash on him. He's a great guitar player.
Absolutely. Steve Vai.
I love smash on Steve Vai. I love Steve Vai. I grew up listening to Steve Vai, and he was, a lot of people.
You grew up listening to Steve Vai.
Yeah, and I'm an old guy.
Fuck yeah! All right.
Steve Vai is.
Right.
But he still looks good. But yeah, Steve Vai he's so creative and such an interesting guitar player. I love his playing.
Oh, fuck yeah, man. He has one of the most unique voices in guitar today, at least in my opinion. All right, David Gilmour.
David Gilmour, smash. He writes solos like vocal melodies, you know what I mean? And they're always fun to listen to, and they always fit the song, and he just got better as Pink Floyd matured. I thought he's an amazing guitar player.
So I'm gonna be like the absolute what's the word? Like the biggest anomaly for me. It's a pass. It really is. Weirdly enough, on David Gilmour, like I still like, I don't hate him. I just don't understand why everyone thinks he's so special. But I mean, I will admit that that's partly to do with me, because apparently everyone else is seeing something I'm not.
Do you like Pink Floyd music?
Generally, yeah. I wouldn't say I love it. There's a handful of songs I can really get down with, and there's some other ones I'm kind of on, But
yeah, I mean, it's definitely it can be pretty depressing shit.
For sure.
Especially all the Roger Waters shit. It's like, holy shit, when he's singing about his dad again. Oh, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But I thought David Gilmour as a guitar player, like he nailed it, like for what Pink Floyd was doing, and great feeling and obviously great vibrato and shit like that. He was a great player for sure. But I get it. He's not your bag.
Apparently not. But all right, next up, George Harrison.
George Harrison. Well, I'm a huge Beatles fan, so
fuck yeah, absolutely.
How can you not be a Beatles fan? I mean, and George Harrison was awesome. And George Harrison was one of those guys that I didn't appreciate as much when I was younger, as were all the Beatles, because I just thought, oh, this shit doesn't have any distortion on the guitar.
That was definitely me at one point.
You know what I mean? Like, fuck. But the older I got, the more I realized, like, holy crap, like they're all their stuff was so, I mean, they were the greatest composers, right, of their era.
Yeah.
And great, you know, they could write in any style. I mean, it's shit, dude. You listen to like, you know, some of the stuff on Sgt. Pepper's and like this, you know, he was playing, he learned how to play the sitar. I mean, Harrison did some awesome shit and wrote some killer shit on lots of instruments. And as a guitar player, he was great too. You listen to like, you know, Taxman or any of that shit. It's all great.
Like that song in particular has great, satisfying ear candy with those harmonies. Just like good, such good phrasing.
Such an underrated writer. Like, dude, if you wrote this, you know, Something in the Way, like if you were just a singer-songwriter and you wrote that and you didn't have any other songs, you'd still be like, you'd have a hit song and you'd go down in history, right? But yeah, that was just one of the Beatles songs, and there were so many of them. And George Harrison wrote that, and it's like, oh yeah, it just fits in with all the other great shit they did. But if it was just George Harrison's solo career, it'd be like, oh my God, that was awesome. Your song is great.
Next up, Kurt Cobain.
Kurt Cobain. Well, first of all, Kurt Cobain, I thought he wrote killer shit. And I thought he played guitar great for the songs that he wrote. And he was very simple, but it fit the vibe great. So, I mean, and I think that there's a great lesson to learn from that, because there's so many guitar players that get caught up in playing scales fast and being super clean and being like, you know, very articulate. And that's cool, but it doesn't always matter. And it can be like, you have to remember like that people want to fucking hear music, and people want to rock, and people need to be like touched by your music. They don't really give a shit. Like 99.9% of the people out there don't really give a crap if you can play lead guitar or not. Like, you can't tell the difference between Steve Vai and Steve Gavill. So why, you know, why waste so much time on being the best lead guitar player on the block? But yet lead guitar players do it all the time. And Kurt Cobain, perfect example, like play like 3 notes in a solo and back to the rhythm part, and it still sounded fuck great. So he made the most money per note of any guitar player we've talked about so far.
Completely different direction. Dimebag Darrell.
Dimebag Darrell, dude, well, he's great. I love Dimebag. I love Pantera though. And the aggressive, like the tone that he had, I mean, it's interesting to go back and listen to those records because it's very scooped mids. Like that's when
super scooped. And like the gain knob at 11. Holy shit.
Totally. And that was like the thing back then. And you know, I came from the era before that where guitars had mid-range, and when that started happening, it was like, oh, that's so weird. Like, how come I can't hear the notes that you're playing? Like, but it's still the vibe of the music great. And Dimebag was a great player, and he was, you know, like very aggressive. And you know, his you know, I used to talk about this with guitar players all the time when I was like at GIT, and I used to hang out with Paul Gilbert a lot. Paul Gilbert's a great player, right? And it's all about the conviction. Like you have to have total conviction. And there are guys that play very sloppy, but they have like total conviction. Dimebag was very clean, but he had total conviction to everything he played, and it was like, that's what makes, I think, certain guys like really stand out as like, this guy's awesome. Like when you heard Dimebag do vibrato, it was like, really?
Oh yeah. His vibrato and that like kind of thinness of the raw tone, but then he would make up for it with like doublers or modulators or shit. Like that, those two things together, I think, are what make him so unique, or at least most of it, what makes him so unique.
And his rhythm guitar playing, which is like killer.
Monster. Yeah.
People, you know, he's such a good lead guitar player that people like would overlook like how tight he was. I gotta tell you, one time I went to a Pantera show in Amsterdam because I was recording in Amsterdam at the time, and I went there and I smoked pot with the guys in Pantera before they went on.
Fuck yeah.
I was like, holy shit, I'm backstage with Pantera and we're all smoking pot, and like they're handing me like the joints and shit, and I'm like, well shit, those guys just handed me the joint and they're about to play it, so I better So I was like smoking pot with these guys, and I got so high, and like my bass player at the time, he got so high that he started to puke, and he passed out in a puddle of backstage. Meanwhile, the guys in Pantera, who I know smoked and drank more than I did, go on stage, and they played they were the tightest band I'd ever heard. It was mind-boggling.
Really?
I could feel my left side, and these guys are on stage, and they're so fucking tight. It was ridiculous.
All right, so this one I think is pretty obvious. Eddie Van Halen. Yeah,
dude. I mean, Eddie was awesome, and he's always been awesome, and he's always been very inspiring, and he's another guy who total conviction in everything he did, and all you got to do is listen to, you know, the rhythm guitar part for "I'm the One," and if you think you're a good guitar player, sit down and play that. See if you can play that like the record and make it sound like the record.
Exactly.
That's a good test.
Which speaking of Eddie, really quick, I happen to have here the Poontang Boomerang, and my first thought was since it's an analog delay, was that intentional, kind of based upon like the Eddie Van Halen style of putting that in the front of your amp instead of in the effects loop?
Well, you know, I'm just more of a fan of analog shit in general.
Oh, fair enough. All right.
Yeah, like you know, and of course that delay was like, it was a no-brainer, you know, doing that.
Oh yeah, that thing screams, and especially like I did put it in the front of my Friedman. When you crank up the dry setting, when you crank the dry setting up, you just get this gnarly hair that I just fucking love, dude. It's so good.
Yeah. I'm glad you dig it. Have you seen our new butthole burner pedal?
I've seen pictures, but I haven't seen the actual. Hell yeah.
It's so great, and we're selling them now. And that's another thing. Like everybody who buys a pedal on our site of the butthole burner gets a free ticket to go see the show as well. But the butthole burner was basically the pussy melter circuit in a different pedal, because, you know, we couldn't really sell the pussy melter anymore because we did a limited run and it sold out. So, but it's the best sounding distortion pedal I've ever heard in my life. Like you can plug it into a Fender Twin and it sounds like, you know, you can make it sound like anything you want. You can make it sound like a freaking Soldano or something. It's crazy.
Oh shit. All right. Yeah.
That's really, really good.
All right. Next up, George Lynch.
George Lynch, one of the best 80s metal lead guitar players of all time, and a huge influence on me. I loved his vibrato. I loved his note choices.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks, oh, that guy's shredding and ripping, but like, dude, if you go back and listen to some of his solos, he was very deliberate about holding notes out for a long time, and you know, he had really cool melodies going on. Some of my favorite solos by him, they didn't have a lot of notes. They were just really melodic. So what a great guitar player that guy's always been.
We did Van Halen, George Lynch, now, of course, Randy Rhoads. You know,
Randy Rhoads is known for being a great lead guitar player, and he was a great lead guitar player, and he was one of the first guys that kind of popularized the classical sounding stuff.
Yes.
Into that. And because, you know, there were guys that were super classical sounding, like Uli John Roth, before Randy came out with Ozzy. But Uli, the Scorpions weren't very big with Uli John Roth. Like they hadn't blown up yet, right? And but Randy, like, I think Randy's strength as a musician, like, was like the riffs that he wrote, like when he was with Ozzy. Like, I mean, obviously Crazy Train is one of the most recognizable, like, heavy metal riffs ever, right? And the shit that he was doing with just rhythm guitar stuff, like, so powerful. To me, that's one of the things that made me want to play guitar, like simple, awesome riffs like that. Like, you know, of course, Black Sabbath kind of shit, you know, like the riffs that Tony Iommi did as well, you know. It's very simple, you know, singular note, low string things. And I thought Randy was great at coming up with bitchin' guitar rhythms. Yeah.
Dude, Over the Mountain, very underrated riff. That thing is monster.
Monster. It was great, and great solo in that too, obviously. So I remember the first time hearing that, just going, "Oh shit, I have to get that good." I still can't play that solo the way it sounds on the record, and that's one of the cool things about guitar. You know, it's like you're going to play something different than the way I'm going to play it. Everybody's going to sound a little bit different. Yeah.
Robbie Krieger.
Robbie Krieger. Well, I thought Robbie Krieger, you know, a lot of people, the Doors are one of those bands, are very polarizing. I know people that hate the Doors, cannot listen to the Doors. Yeah, I get it. I used to listen to the Doors because my older brother, who is now completely insane and living on the streets.
Oh shit, man.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Yeah. He's literally crazy, but he goes in and out of jail and shit like that. And he used to listen to all kinds of crazy shit, and he used to listen to the Doors all the time. And Robbie Krieger, even though, like, I can't imagine being in that band because there was no fucking bass player. Like,
yeah,
it's so weird. Like, how can you even be in that band? Like, he played perfectly in that band. He had all kinds of hooks for that music and a lot of like very simple, you know, rhythm parts that fit perfectly. I thought everything that he did in that band was great, but he was not the focus of the band either. He was like, you know, but sometimes
really? You would say he wasn't the focus. Who would you say was the focus of the Doors?
Ray Manzarek. Well, I mean,
okay, that's fair. Yeah, he was insanely good.
Aside from Jim, I mean, obviously Jim was. I mean, without Jim Morrison, there wouldn't have been the Doors because he was like the sex symbol, and like he made that a heavy metal band basically. Like Jim Morrison was like,
that's a statement.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Like, but he's look at the guy. He was like a heavy metal. He was like David Lee Roth before David Lee Roth. Great looking dude. You know, he didn't like dance around and shit like David Lee Roth.
He was even before Robert Plant too, right?
Yeah, I mean they were really before Robert Plant, and he had the swagger before anybody. He was like a heavy metal Elvis or some shit, you know, in the middle of the '60s. So I can understand why people got into that, and his voice was great too. But you know, of course, their stuff sounds dated. For
sure.
But at the same time, it's got some hooks, and his voice still sounds great. So when you listen to it.
That's okay. That's the one that I don't agree, but everyone's entitled to their opinions.
Come on, dude. Robbie Krieger's shredding tone, dude. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, all right. Greg Howe.
Greg Howe's awesome. Yeah, he's you know, I think he definitely got a little bit lost, or he maybe turned out to be a little underrated because there were so many shredders back then, and he came out like he was on Shrapnel, and but he's a great player.
One thing that I heard years ago from, I'm not going to say specifically from who, but it was someone who contributed in some capacity to one of his earlier records. If he had focused more on getting better production, he could have been on that scale with the Steve Vai's and the Joe Satriani's, you know. From my perspective, I guess that's probably a good call, because like, man, like if Eric Johnson can find a huge broad audience with how freaking like everywhere from blazing hot to just super mild and a very different from anything else that was going on, you know, like if he can find a huge audience like that, I guarantee Greg Howe could have. Like, he was so tasty, you know, or is so tasty.
He's a great player for sure. I mean, it's weird. Sometimes it's hard to tell what makes somebody hit or miss. You know, I mean, like Joe Bonamassa is like a really, really big guitar player, but you know, he's a great player, but he's definitely. I mean, he's very Eric Johnson-y.
Yeah,
because you can tell, like, you know, he's very influenced by Eric Johnson. Like a lot of the pentatonic scales, like a lot of that is very, you know, that sort of down that road. But I mean, I think he appeals to people who listen to blues.
Very much so.
Blues-based stuff. So and sometimes people get really big. You know, there's some really good blues players out there. Some of them get bigger than others. You know, like I think Joe Bonamassa has definitely gone beyond just guitar players. Like his audience, there's people that don't play guitar that come see. Because if they were just guitar players, he wouldn't be playing the Royal Albert Hall in England. It'd be smaller places. So
exactly.
does very well. So, and he's definitely a great player, but there's a lot of great players that don't get very popular as well. Some guys just do bars.
Yeah, and part of that I think is composition, but part of that too is also just style. You know, I think Joe Bonamassa does something that's a little bit more broadly digestible typically. I could be off on that. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, I don't listen to a lot of Joe Bonamassa just because it's just not my style, you know, of stuff. So I listen to different kind of stuff, but he's a great player. So
yeah, absolutely. John McLaughlin.
Oh, smoking player.
Fuck yeah.
Another dude that I like. He's not like, I don't listen to jazz a lot, but he's amazing. Like Al Di Meola, John McLaughlin.
Al Di Meola, fuck yeah.
Great players, and technically like flawless, amazing. Of course, those are some of the dudes. Like when I first started playing guitar, I was like, oh my God, like how can I learn how to alternate pick like these dudes? Like what am I missing? You know, and that's just, you know, not everybody's going to get to that level, you know. But
yeah,
it's super inspiring, and it's still inspiring to go listen to, you know, Mahavishnu Orchestra. And,
oh, totally.
to this day, like 50 years later, it's like, oh shit, like those guys set the bar. Yeah, they set the bar for that.
And not a whole lot of people have reached it. You know, it's difficult.
Exactly, and that's one of those things. Like, you know, as a guitar player, because everybody wants to be able to play technically flawless, but then as you start down that road with the goal of like perfection out there, I think then you start to go, okay, perfection, like technical perfection, may be something that I don't know if I'm ever going to get as good as I want to get. So why am I not creating stuff, you know, while I'm trying to get better? Like at some point you got to go, okay, I'm never going to alternate pick like Al Di Meola. So who gives a shit? Like
exactly.
You did it as good as you can do it anyway, right? So I'm going to learn how to do all the things that I can do well and make music with it. You know what I mean? Like you try to be as good as you can be on guitar. And that's, I think, you know, a lot of guys who play guitar don't realize, like, having weaknesses on guitar, that's just as important as having strengths. Like, you're going to know what your strengths and weaknesses are. And when you figure out, oh, okay, like I'm not going to be an alternate pick guy like Paul Gilbert. So what are my strengths? And then you find what those are, and then you find your style. That's how you find your style. Like you go, oh, I don't need to sound like this guy. I'm going to sound like me, and I'm going to do the things that I do well, and that's, you know, a big part of finding a style is being creative. Like, what licks can I play with conviction? And, you know, it's all about the conviction, because like if you try to play, you know, alternate picking runs like Paul Gilbert with as much conviction with him, you're probably not going to do it. Like most people can't. He can do that shit with total conviction, but most of us are going to be like, okay, I'm going to do something else. You know? Yeah, for sure. That's how you find your thing.
And that's I get like that goes right along with the advice that like Steve Vai gave to someone who was asking, like, how do I find my own unique voice? He said, cultivate your strengths, ignore your weaknesses. Just like drive home what you're good at. And I even find myself when I'm writing solos, my brain writes better than I can play. So then it's like you're just like stuck in a place where, okay, what's the coolest thing I can make with the limited skills that I have? You know what I mean? That
is such a huge part of the process of like making a record, right? Like you go in and you go, oh, I know what I want this to sound like. But then the process of recording it, like recording a drum beat or recording a guitar rhythm, sometimes the physicality of the part you're trying to play sounds better if you change the part. And you have to be willing as an artist to go, I'm not going to do what I originally thought I was going to do. I'm going to modify it to something that I can play and it sounds better. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's how you get an even cooler part. by being willing to change during that process. So it's part of writing a record. Yeah.
Freaking A, man.
It's funny. Paul Gilbert, I used to hang out with Paul Gilbert all the time, and he used to listen to guys like Pat Travers. He turned me on to Pat Travers.
Hell yeah.
Pat Travers had a record called "Go for What You Know," and that title that says it all right there. Like Pat Travers is going for what he knew. He played the shit he knew best, and that was a part of my learning experience as a kid in the '80s, and getting to know guys like Paul Gilbert, who was a big influence on me. And he would, it was all about what can you do with conviction, and what are your strengths? You know what I mean? It's just got to figure it out on your own.
Absolutely. Satchel, I greatly appreciate you showing up with us here on the YouTube channel over here, saying hi to my peeps and saying hi to me. Like, seriously, as an honor. You are an inspiration, sir. And the guitar player of a pack of fucking legends, it's damn awesome.
I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. And thanks for having me on. And if you get a chance, watch our show. It's on June 7th, 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern. I think it's 10 p.m. if you're in London, but it's 2 p.m. LA time, and we're going to rock people's balls off. So hopefully we'll see you on there.
And you'll be finding that at www.steelpantherrocks.com.
Steelpantherrocks.com. That's right.
Fucking A. All right. You guys take it easy, and I will see you in the next video. Rock on.
Rock on.